Hello, everyone. This is Mark Holthe, Canadian immigration lawyer, here on a special live stream here on YouTube and Facebook and all over the place, wherever this is going live, to talk about the post-election impact on immigration. And I'll be honest, doing these live streams, I have absolutely loved it. But on occasion, and I've had 2 times now, one being last week, where I put my foot in my mouth. And so I want to address something right off the bat, because if you go back and you look at the actual video that I did last week, and I'll just show you guys here. This is important for me here. So if you look back at the video I did last week, yeah, there's me. See my big mouth that's open. You can see that I've never had this many negative comments ever. I've had 22 negative comments, and they were 100% reasonable given what happened in the video. So many of you, I know, are suffering because of what's happened with immigration. And many of you are outside of Canada, applications are delayed. And I made the comment that Canada doesn't owe you anything. Oh my goodness. And there's lots of people here who have expressed their concerns about that comment. And they're 100% valid and justified in the circumstances for doing it. And so as I was thinking a lot about this, and I definitely, that wasn't what I intended. That wasn't what I meant. And there was a whole context there, but sometimes people just hear one comment, and there's a big difference between what is a legal obligation and what's just human decency. So with that being said, as I get into this quick little express entry, well, really, we're going to talk about express entry. We're going to talk about a bunch of things, but as we talk about the impact of the election right here on basically what's going to happen with respect to immigration, because a lot of people just think it's going to be business as usual. There's no issues, and there won't be any changes. Well, the reality is there will be, and I want to share some of those with you tonight. But before I get there, I want to share a little story. And this story that I want to share is about this little guy here, or maybe I should say it's more, it's an object lesson, I guess, to teach a bigger point, and it does come back to immigration, and it's called the rabbit effect. Now, I don't know if many of you know about this, but back in the 1970s, they were studying basically the effects of diet on heart health. And so what do you do when you're doing experiments? So back in the 1970s, over a period of several months, what they did was they fed a control group of rabbits a very high fat diet and monitored basically their blood, their heart rate, their cholesterol. And obviously, as expected, many of the rabbits showed this buildup of fatty deposits on the inside of their arteries. All right, that's great. But there was a problem. And the problem was that one of the groups surprisingly had as much as 60% less than the other groups. And well, if anyone is involved in scientific experiments, that was a huge issue, and they couldn't figure out what was going on. They were losing sleep at night because this was a complete anomaly, and they just couldn't figure it out. Well, eventually what they did was they turned their attention to the research staff, and they realized that one of the researchers actually was doing things a little bit different. She was unusually kind, the report says, and a caring individual. And when she fed the rabbits, she talked to them, cuddled them, and petted them. She couldn't help it. It's just how she was. She did more than simply just feed the rabbits the food. She gave them love. And at first glance, the report says they couldn't believe this. They couldn't believe that one researcher doing this could have that much of an impact on this one control group. So they replicated it. And sure enough, when they redid it and really tightened in all of the different controls within the experiment, the results replicated themselves and the same thing happened. And so there's been a number of books that have been written about this, but essentially what they do is they call it the rabbit effect. And I want to liken this to this whole discussion about, does Canada owe you anything? And first off, I want to apologize because I didn't mean it that way, especially when I said Canada doesn't owe you anything. That's one of the dangers of doing a live stream, when you have questions thrown up and you're answering rapid fire, and then someone hears what you say and completely validly calls you out on it. And that's what happened. And so I honestly do my best not to put my foot in my mouth. but absolutely I did. So back to this rabbit effect. Okay. So these rabbits were all basically given the same food. So they were in the same situation. They same living arrangements, but the only difference was the one researcher who was feeding the food basically gave them kindness and showed them love and affection and actually cared for them. And I know this is a big leap, and I know it's a little bit of a weird concept to think about, but I couldn't help but think of all of the people who have applied to immigration or who've been stranded outside the country with their COPRs that have expired, or those with applications pending and their lives are on hold, or those who have been just desperately waiting for the rounds of invitations to kick in so that they could come through express entry. Obviously, the outland candidates are the ones that have been suffering the most. And when I look at this little story about the rabbit effect, there was one thing that I know our government has failed miserably at. The immigration department has absolutely crashed and burned on this. And this is going to be one of the discussion points that I have going forward. Basically, for the entire last year that I'm going to have on the Canadian Bar Association as the immediate past chair, it's communication. And the biggest failure I see, sure, the pandemic hit, processing times are the way they are, overseas visa offices are understaffed or closed, causing huge backlogs. The immigration system wasn't modern, so the paper-based applications just sat, and everything from, that flowed from the pandemic and everything that we're going through right now impacted on this horrible situation we're in. And that is truly something that, right or wrong, immigration feels that they can't control. But one thing they can control is how they treat you guys and how they respond to your questions and how they open up with transparency with respect to where you're at in the process. And I think about how all of you who are just so angry and angry at me, and rightly so, you're angry at me for saying that Canada doesn't owe you anything. For all of those people, I just wonder how people would feel and what a difference it would make for them, their families, and their lives if immigration actually communicated with you. Right now, they've got another justification for not talking to anyone, and it's the Afghan crisis. So there's always something with immigration, always a justification why they can't answer the phone, why they can't talk to you like human beings, why they can't be there to at least let you know that we're realistically not going to be able to get to your application for 6 months. Well, if that's the case, then it is what it is. There's not a lot that you can do about it. But what they could do and what they didn't do was treat you guys with respect, with decency, with common courtesy. And one of the comments on the video that I did last week addressed that exact thing. Yes, they don't maybe have a legal entitlement to process anything when they're in what we call a force majeure situation or something outside of their control. But one thing they can do a whole lot better, and I would demand it of the Liberal government right now, is better communication, and that they actually talk to you guys and let you know where you're at. Now, we're going to get to their platform. We're going to get to what they've promised. And then I want you guys to hold them accountable, because at the end of the day, we have got basically the same thing. And I'll just take these off. We've got the same exact government. It's a minority government, just like I've identified here. And what we're looking at today is what the impact of this minority government is, the real impact on immigration. So the first thing you guys have to understand is that their lack of communication and their lack of ability to actually move things forward, they've basically got another, they've been reelected under the same platform. And so no one is complaining loud enough, I guess, from an immigration perspective to cause any difference to happen. Now, whether the Conservatives got in or the NDP got in, we're not sure how much of a difference it would have made in the situation that you guys are in now, but there's no excuse for them to communicate and actually treat you guys with decency and respect, just like the rabbit effect, essentially, and the outcomes and how people feel. And I know that feeling doesn't get you to Canada. I understand that. But can you imagine what the world would be like if the reports in your portal actually told you where you were at. If you could contact immigration, speak to someone on the phone who tells you, yeah, we're really sorry about where things are at. This is where you're exactly at in the process. This is how many applications are ahead of you. This is realistically where we project you to be. And that there is the massive failing that I see with the immigration IRCC right now. And in discussions with Minister Mendocino, got reelected. He's still the minister until something changes. That, in my mind, is the part that they have to do something about, in addition to what we're going to talk about right now. So I know that was a big lead in, and people are wondering, why are we talking about this? You know, and there's a lot of people, I can see the comments, that are so frustrated and so angry. And I'll just pull up Cynical here. And I love individuals who don't have their own real name there, because I like to call you by your own name, but would love a live with the actual officer in IRCC. Yeah, alive with the actual officer in IRCC. And here are their inputs. All should be sued for gross negligence and emotional distress. This is very responsible. We deserve transparency or a refund. So one thing I can tell you, that I don't disagree with your frustration at all. I don't. And I just wanted to acknowledge my error and my mistake in the last video, because it wasn't fair of me to say that in the context in which it was given, regardless. And like I said, this is the second time I put my foot in my mouth, but that's the biggest failing. Transparency would go a long way in helping people to at least understand how to govern themselves, how to, determine processing times. And like I talked about before Express Entry was created, processing was, in some countries, was up to 6 or 7 years. And so the whole concept of processing has been up and down, up and down. Express Entry has been kind of it's been a really good program globally up until the pandemic. And the pandemic has changed everything, and it has for many countries in the world. But I'm done with that now. I'm going to move on. And what I want to do is to focus now on why this re-election actually will have an impact on the future of immigration in Canada. And it won't just simply be status quo, but let's dive into that. All right. And I know lots of people have got questions, so hold off on your questions until we get down a little bit further. And then I will save some time at the end to talk about this. But what I want to focus on right now, I'm going to shift over to the source of information for you guys. And it's really important for me that I share with you exactly what, is my source of information. So let's actually go back to the election here. And what some people are probably wondering, what does a minority mean? Like, what does that mean in the context of an election? Well, the reality is, what a minority means is that the top party with the most votes does not have more votes than all of the other parties combined. When they do that, then they don't have to, they don't have to align themselves with anyone to get through. A majority government means that in the case of the Liberals, they would have had to have gotten to 170. Now you can see there are still some that are still pending, some ridings. There's 10 open spots here. But even with the Conservatives, the way they're at right now, they're only going to reach 119. And the Liberals are not going to get to that majority because they're only sitting at 158 elected seats. So what that means is overall, they have more than anyone else. So they become the official party. Excuse me. The next lowest one becomes the official opposition, which is the Conservatives. And for the most part, we are pretty much where we were before the election was even called. And interesting to note here is that just overall popular vote, you can see the Liberals were at 32.3% and the Conservatives had 33.9% of the total votes cast. But in Canada, it's based on riding. So sometimes the Conservatives won with a greater margin in some ridings versus others. And that's why this number is fluctuating. But in terms of the situation, that is basically what a minority government means. So now let's flip over here. And what we're going to look at now is what the Liberal government calls, and let me see if I can just push it down just a little bit so you can see. Right up here in the left, you can see Forward for Everyone. So this is their platform. And this is where you can get an idea of where they intend to go. Now, there's a bunch of things, obviously, that we know as a result of this election and these results. This is the third time that the Liberals have been elected since 2015. We know that. And lots of people feel it's just going to be business as usual and maybe we go forward. I told you Minister Mendicino was reelected, and so he may remain as the minister. We've seen cabinet shuffles with the new election. It's possible Minister Mendicino moves on to something else, just like Minister Ahmad Hussein, who was the previous immigration minister, was there and then was reassigned to a different portfolio following the election. We know that Minister Blair was also reelected, and he's over the border in CBSA, and so a lot of the MPs were reelected that were serving as ministers. So we'll see how that plays out. Now, with respect to what's, the good thing, I guess everybody has to understand is that one of the positives with the minority government is that the Liberals, it depends on whatever they're putting forward, but they're always going to need to get one of the parties on side with what they're doing to get things passed. The interesting thing about immigration is a lot of the programs and things within immigration are done by ministerial instruction. And that's why those of you who watch, who pay attention to the legislative framework around immigration can see that express entry is, the changes within express entry are created by ministerial instruction. The rounds of invitations are issued by ministerial instruction. And so that is something that can be done by the minister alone. And so for immigration purposes, the Liberals, there is going to be a status quo there. So what does that mean? The immigration levels are going to continue just as planned. 401,000 was this year, and then it increased by 10 or a little bit more, 15,000 each year in 2022, 2023. So the immigration levels will continue to remain high. And I've said this in the past, express entry is not going anywhere. It is going to change, and we know in the budget that they have proposed some little modifications with express entry to allow for, and you can see in their platform, you can see right here in what they, and if you guys can find this yourself, you can go search for it. In this plan, their Forward for Everyone platform, they highlight the desire to assist international students and foreign workers, once again, in Canada. And so we'll see. They've also put forward some platform proposals to really sharpen up the global skill strategy, and for bringing in foreign workers. And so we'll just have to see how those things play out. On the list of priorities that they have specifically canvassed on is obviously the modernization of the system. So the fact that the paper-based applications, which created a disaster for so many of you out there that were in the family class that are separated from families, or even the whole nature of the way visas are issued in passports, that's really one of the problems. Because if you don't have officers in a visa office and you can't get a passport imprinted with a visa to get on a plane to travel, then that's one of the bottlenecks. With the modernization of the system and the ability to process applications in any location, anywhere, that is going to make things better going forward. And there was a significant amount of money that was allocated towards that in the last budget that the Liberals put forward. Now, in the new year, there's going to be new mandate letters for each of the ministers to tell them what the real priorities and what the real focuses are. I know for a fact that express entry or something along those lines related to the modernization, which some of you have seen floating around there, and I will do a video on some of the proposed changes, but those things are definitely going to be a priority. The reunification of families, they've talked about it, but there's no details in there exactly how they're going to fix things other than the digitization of, obviously, which they're working through, of the existing paper applications, but the online filing system to help expedite the process and get it away from paper-based. So we're already in the midst of that. Helping refugees, we know the commitment that they've made to the Afghan refugees and those people that are suffering. Like I said, attracting global talent is one of the things that's a priority, and then international students is on that list. So if you look, and that's what they campaigned with all throughout the election. Now at this stage, now that we have the platform, it's another matter to see how fast and to what extent they actually implement everything that they've had in there. So a couple things that they've identified is the need to welcome talented workers to Canada. And this is a big shift, you guys. we know that next year, and I haven't done a video on this, but other people have, it's not necessary, the knock code is going to be changing. And so it's going to be moving away from the high skill, low skill to something that is much more comprehensive, that takes into other factors. The knock codes themselves are going to be adjusted, but nothing is happening right now. So it's going to be a while out. And remember, the whole express entry system is based on a 4-digit knock code, and they can't just automatically shift gears and make that change. So it takes time for that to roll out. I don't expect to see any impact of the knock, this new 2021 knock, until at the end of next year at the earliest. So we'll see how that plays out. Okay, they also talked about, and this is one of the things that was specifically in their platform, and you have to kind of dig through it because it's not just laid out everything related to immigration, but it's interlaced with their entire strategy. And they said that they're going to reform economic immigration programs to expand pathways to permanent residence for temporary foreign workers and former international students through the express entry point system. So what does that mean? Once again, they're silent with you guys outside of Canada, you outlanders. They're silent as to how and what efforts they're going to be pushing forward to fix this situation. So I didn't see anything in the election campaign, anything in the platform from the Liberals that suggested that they were going to prioritize any of you guys that are outside outlanders basically suffering from the situation that you're in. So I didn't see any outright promises made to fix this. So I know based on what we've seen that there's so many officers to go around, and the Liberal government, the IRCC, they will determine where officers are going to be allocated. And so I don't have super good news for you right at this moment. Okay, another thing that I want to point out is that they've seen what happened with the TR to PR pathway, and the minister has himself identified the fact that just because a person is in a skill level B on the knock versus C does not necessarily make them any less valuable in the grand scheme of things for the economic recovery of Canada. And so we know that going forward, there's going to be some changes to accommodate for that. And that's why they said they're looking at expanding pathways to permanent residence, and that's through express entry as much as anything for temporary foreign workers. And this is going to be at all levels. So when we get more information, I'll definitely share that. They're also talked about some of the economic mobility pathways for refugees that are in Canada, up to 2,000. They're looking at ways of it, directing them to in-demand sectors such as healthcare, which we've seen, to facilitate permanent residence for them. For companies, they've realized that the foreign worker program, there are things that they can do to streamline it for trusted employers with a track record of compliance over and over. We still are waiting to see how that will play out, but their desire to fill labor shortages, those of you who are looking for job offers in Canada, we anticipate that as the economy starts to recover, that there will be more of those jobs available to have you come and work, especially those of you who have great skills that are a great fit for our economy and our labor force, but there's no pathway forward because of the downturn in the economy, the fact that things have slowed down, and excuse me, companies are not looking for as many foreign nationals as they were maybe a few years ago because of the downturn in the economy and everything that's resulted from the pandemic. But we see light at the end of the tunnel going forward. Okay, they're going to continue with the PNPs, working with them. And one of the things I found very interesting that I wanted to share with you guys is they made specific reference, and they even created a section entirely for this, which was strengthening family reunification and reducing processing times. Once again, those reduced processing times, they talked to making them under 12 months. Well, what is missing is exactly how they're going to do this and which applications they intend to focus on getting them under 12 months. More than likely, it's the spousal or the family class applications. They already have targets and expectations with respect to express entry. That is express entry within the CEC realm, as opposed to the outland, because of everything going on with the pandemic. And I wish I could tell you guys that their focus now is going to be on really prioritizing the FSW, but I haven't seen anything to say that at this stage. And so I think there's still going to be a long haul for you guys. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to address it. And you know, I know people are really angry with the comments that I made last week, but please, please believe me, I genuinely care about you guys. And I genuinely, my heart goes out to you. The fact that you guys have been trapped there. And some of you have been waiting for those outland, no program specified draws under the FSW. And now you're having birthdays, your points are dropping, and it's become so competitive. And so please forgive me for those comments, because although I knew what I wanted to say, it totally came out as if I was unfeeling and uncaring, and it's simply not the case. So I'm really, really sorry about that. Okay, we've talked about the fact with family reunification that you're introducing electronic applications to help speed that up. It's already underway. You guys know that have accessed the PR portal, the new one. It's full of glitches. It's a mess. It's just really, really, there's so many things that they have to work through. Why? Because they rushed to release it as fast as they could, the minimum viable product, which a lot of you in the IT world are very familiar with. Well, that's what's happened here. So they rushed to get it out, and now there's lots of problems with it. And we've assigned from the CBA an individual specifically to liaise with IRCC to communicate all the problems. And really what we're doing, guys, is beta testing it for them. And so at least this mechanism will remove it from the horrible paper-based process that's caused so much problem for families, for PNP applicants that are paper-based, for the significant delays, all of those things that people are having to deal with who are in those particular categories that weren't filed through an online process. We talked about the continued commitment to take in refugees. And interestingly, they are committed, at least within their platform, it says, to removing the application fee for permanent residents who are applying for citizenship. So we know that going forward, and this is one of the things I want to point out to you guys once again, immigration was not an election issue. It wasn't. The other parties were more interested in holding them to the fire when it comes, holding their feet to the fire when it comes to the economic recovery of the country, you know, other social issues. But when it comes to immigration, none of the parties stepped up and said, look, you know, you guys did a horrible job of managing this. Because I think to a large extent, everybody realizes that this was in very uncertain times. And, initially they did the best they could in the circumstances. Personally, I think it's now time to stop making excuses and to move forward and to make changes and to start by communicating. And the fact that when you guys call the call center, you can't ask for a status update anymore. They won't even answer. In fact, they won't even answer us. And that, as far as I'm concerned, is completely unacceptable. All right. And we're going to see those of you who are looking for a way to find, basically to increase your express entry, your CRS score, French. So the desire to expand Francophones across Canada is a big part of that platform. So those extra, 25 and 50 points in express entry, those of you who right now are seeing your points kind of drop and you're wondering, what can you do? Well, French. And that is something that's going to be there. And it's going to be a part of the process because they have a strong desire to get Francophone into other areas of Canada outside of Quebec. And then last but not least, I think if you watch, they're going to start to expand the rural and northern immigration pilot. I think they're going to start to expand to new communities. And there's a desire for people not to live in Vancouver or Toronto or Montreal, but to instead move to more rural areas. And I think if you watch, we will see that is going to start to expand. All right. Okay. Let's get to the questions. And this is open season. And if you guys want to post comments that saying Mark sucks and nothing he says is worth anything, that's fine. You're entitled to it. I'm not going to screen out any comments and we'll just go through, but you can post your questions now and I'll do my best to answer them. Let's go from there. So we've got Sajad. Good to see you. Will TR to PR will be fast? No, it will not, Sahib. Not in any way, shape, or form. And the reason it's not going to be fast, like I've talked about before, is because they are not, they're not just refusing applications unless there are significant grounds to do it. They're giving people a chance to upload new information, to correct things, to fix things. And when they do that, the processing grinds right to a halt. It's not like express entry where they just refuse because you've submitted a black and white copy of your German police your police certificate versus a color one. Okay. Amir Abbas, it's good to see you. Thanks for connecting. Yeah. And so Sahib, we've got that answered there. Good to see you, Kandamir. It's good to see you. I see you're over in Kitchener, so it's about 8:30 there right now. Okay, Yedwinder, let's see what Yedwinder has here. He says, what's happening on TRV applications? They've asked not to reapply. Oh, this, Yedwinder, I don't even know if I can answer this question. This is another example of complete gong show. I'm not sure what was going on with these other than to try to like the concept of reapplying and then changing it and coming back and saying, well, now you don't need to reapply. Like they were literally telling people who submitted a TRV application and it had been in the queue for a long time, well, resubmit and you'll get faster processing. Obviously, all of that's kind of, reversed now. So I'm not even sure if I can answer this because the last questions that we had that we posed to them only a week and a half ago, they did not provide any substantive response to us. And so where was one supposed to inform about it? Also, if reapplying should regular GC key or the new IRCC portal? I read on Canada Visa Forum, people said who used GC got PPR. Okay, this one is, I'm not quite sure. You've kind of got a bunch of stuff, Yedwinder, stuck in there, TRVs. And yeah, so understand that the GC key, all the temporary applications, the TRVs go through your MyCIC account. Okay, so that's where they go through. And which is obviously your GC key, and then you log in through that route. Immigration is looking at all kinds of different ways to sort this out. Remember, because visitor visas were basically stalled out, those officers were reassigned to start processing the tier-to-peer pathway. But now that it's opened up again, and they've got this crushing demand from the Afghan crisis situation, now officers are being pulled in all different directions, and they are having to prioritize which streams of immigration are going to get responsive treatment and which ones aren't. And so I don't have a direct answer for you, Yedwinder, otherwise to confirm that yes, things are a mess. Okay, I think I answered this one. TRP pathway for essential non-healthcare is taking so long. Same reason, you guys. It's because they're giving people second and third and fourth chances. Ralph, it's good to see you. Let's see. We've got Janny, good to see you over in Hamilton. Yedwinder's up in Calgary. Yes, you are, my friend, right in my home province. Thanks, Ralph. It's good. Everybody's watching. Okay, and then we've got Kapil from India. I was doing okay. I'll tell you, I had a really rough week because I never want to be in a position where I'm offending people with what I say. You know, I generally try to be a pretty agreeable person. And I think, I just made those stupid comments last week. So, people let you know pretty quick when what you say is not acceptable. Okay, French speaking, understand there's no distinction between the tier-to-peer pathway streams. First in, first out. So theoretically, first in, first out. There's obviously some other factors at play, including individuals going quicker than family. And if you have family outside of Canada, that's going slower than someone who has all their family inside. All right. Good to see you, Amna. Hello. We've got Samaya here. Okay. Nahal says, hey, Mark, does working 40 hours a week in the summer count in 1560 hours for students applying for tier-to-peer, essential worker stream, or the limit is 30 hours per week? You're not going to get credit for any more than 30. So 30 is over 1560 hours. You can't accumulate it in 10 months, I guess is what I'm saying. You actually have to work the full 12 months. Okay, Yusuf, I sure didn't feel like the immigration guide this week. Hopefully I can earn people's trust back. Terry Ann, good to see you. And Iman says, what will the new government do to fix the PR processing time? Good question, Iman. That is something I want to see because they are constantly taking on more. And that, my heart goes out for the Afghan people. No one could have predicted what was going to happen. Well, okay, I'll leave aside the politics in the US, but the reality is no one could have anticipated this happening when it did. and then Canada's response and our desire to try to help, you know, our friends and you know, those that Canada's collaborated with when they were in Afghanistan. And so as far as when this, you know, they're going to fix the processing times, well, how do you fix processing times? You fix them by assigning officers, by hiring officers. The processing times, if they want to tackle them in one area, then another area will suffer, and that's what we're seeing here, you guys. So I wish I could tell you. Simone says, "Hey Mark, hope you and your family are doing well. Just wanted to let you know I received my AOR last week. Good. I'm gonna do this. Oh, here we go. Turn this on. Okay, Simone, that was a little delayed clap there, but that is so cool. I am so happy for you. I love the positive stories, because the people that are so frustrated with immigration, so angry, and I completely understand the anger. You know, you're the ones that tend to be on watching and hoping and looking for answers and looking for updates, because there's no other way to get answers, right? This comes back to what I said at the beginning for those of you who are jumping on later. You know, the Liberals and IRCC can't be faulted for all of the things that have plagued the immigration department. But one thing they can squarely, without reservation, is their lack of communication and lack of respect to applicants, because of their decision not to adequately staff the call centers with people who can help and relay where someone realistically is at. You know, and every single person is important to this country. And people have made comments, immigrants, you know, Canada needs to treat them better because we're the future. And you know what? You're right. You are. With the population, you know, the birth rates, I think they're under 1.5 now almost in Canada. The reality is, without immigrants coming and with our massive retiring workforce, if it's not for immigrants coming in, Canada's going to be in a mess. And that's why the levels planning are so high. So my heart goes out to all of you guys. Yeah, and I think we talked about this, the new changes. I want to tell you guys not to worry or stress about this right now. Just don't, because I don't think we're going to see anything start to get implemented until the end of next year. Those of you who are in the pool that are moving forward, you're going to be processed in accordance with the 4-digit knock, the skill level B, even though the proposals, and you can see changes starting to be implemented that affect the job duties and things like that within knocks. Do not stress about that stuff, Kendamir, right now. It's not gonna, we're not gonna see anything until a long time. And just think, remember to shift from a 4-digit, you can see just the slightest change, what it does to immigration. You know, it basically crushes the system and it shuts down and locks up. Well, trying to switch from a 4-digit knock to a 5, and everything is interlaced within that 4-digit. And so next year. Okay, Manik says, TR to PR, international grad, application was linked on July 7th, but no received biometric request yet. Very common, my friend. It is very, very common. I'm grateful that you got your AOR and that it's linked. It's taking at least a month or longer. Obviously, we're 2 months now for you, but that is not surprising. It's not. Hang in there, my friend. Yes, Ali makes a good point. I appreciate your efforts. How much time they need to put the visa inside my passport when I give my passport to VFS Global in Jordan? The reality is it's the volume, right? So how long does it take to actually physically imprint it? I'm sure they've got a machine. They print it off. They like hot seal it in or whatever they use to connect it. Maybe someone has more insight on the actual physical process of sealing that visa into the passport, but it doesn't take a long time. It doesn't, Ellie. But the problem is when they have 10,000 to do, and there are 1/10 of the officers to do it that they used to do it. That's the problem. Because remember, it's not VFS that does it. VFS passes it on to immigration, and then it's the consulate or the visa office that actually does the imprinting. Okay, so Preet says, RC said they got an error in my PR card production. What is that means, Mark? Please help. It could be a photo problem. Maybe they had an issue with the photo. As far as an error in the PR card producing it, who knows? You know, it's such a weird response. I'm assuming that it's not something that they're saying you need to do to fix it, which is often photos is the problem. But even the foreign worker program lately, the whole online system for ESDC and Service Canada, has been a complete gong show. Down outages, officers not even able to print LMIAs. And so, you know, all of this, they're just, the whole system screams for an update. And the budget, the Liberals are in, it was their budget allocating funds to modernize the system. You know, it's going to be applicants years from now that are going to benefit from that. But I feel for you, Sarpreet. I've never heard an error in PR card production. I have no clue what that would be. I'm just speculating. Okay, Krishna says, I have 2 work permits and both work permit have 2 different USCI numbers. Which one can I use for my PR application? I just pick the latest one. And then what I do is I just notify them that, hey, I had this other work permit with a different UCI. Krishna, that means that you have 2 different files within immigration, 2 different profiles. And for some reason, when someone filed an application, maybe they didn't include your UCI in that second one, and therefore they're not linked together. So let immigration know that you do have 2, and then they can merge your history internally on their end. You don't need to worry about it, but use the latest one, and then in your letter of explanation indicate, hey, I have another one on a different work permit. And if you want to provide a copy of the work permit, you can do that as well, so that they merge your immigration history into 1 versus 2. Okay, Amir says, are they open the cap for Stream B, essential worker? No, I really don't anticipate them doing that. I see them in the new year potentially looking at other options and other alternatives. But at this stage, that the TR to PR pathway was a discretionary humanitarian process. It wasn't under the economic stream. It was under, you know, the humanitarian and compassionate kind of stream that was based on the minister's authority to do so in these dire circumstances. And so I guess I shouldn't say never, like there's a 0% chance. Anything could happen. Who would have predicted draw 176, right? 75 CRS. Who would have predicted it? But it happened. So it's always, I guess it's possible, but I think the likelihood is quite low. If they were still hungry for in-Canada applicants to fill their quotas, they would have continued doing larger CEC draws, which I haven't seen them do, which in my mind suggests that they are moving to the stage where they're going to do outland draws. But until it happens, we have to wait and see. Javon, work experience for paid internship? Yep. Yeah, you can, as long as you were paid. There's no restrictions for even if you're going to school and working at the same time, not like within Canada. If you're outside, as long as you meet the eligibility requirements, it's full-time paid, 30 hours a week. And it's in a skilled position, and it's continuous and meets those obligations. Excuse me, the eligibility for work history under the Federal Skilled Worker Program, then it's fine. Okay. Hi, Mark. It's 2 a.m. in South Africa, but hey, what's time got to do with it? Big shout out to you guys on the other side of the world. Thank you so much for tuning in. Yes, Ali, I see what you're saying. Appreciate your efforts. Decision has been made. Yep. How much time do they need to put the visa? That's a very, very good question, Ali, and I can't answer that. I really can't. I don't have any sufficient background to know exactly where they're at. In fact, half of the time immigration themselves don't know exactly how long they're going to take. And that's the problem. That's where I'll call out IRCC. That's where they've done a real crappy job. It's communicating with people. All right. Okay. Roshan is still waiting on the AOR for TR to PR. Hang in there. Hang in there, Roshan. Okay, Muhammad applied TR to PR, health, essential non-health. Wife has a study permit and co-op permit, maybe. Can only she apply for open work permit as a spouse under TR to PR? Yeah, so basically with the TR to PR, if she's going under the essential, they allow work done while on a study permit. So TR to PR allows people to complete their essential, the essential worker 1 year with study permit work authorization, or co-op works. So it can work. She doesn't have to wait for her post-grad work permit after to then go through. But remember, the TR to PR pathway for non-health is capped out. So it's closed. It's only the healthcare workers where there's still spot open, unless you speak French. I'm just going to get a drink here. Okay. What is a decision made mean in spouse sponsorship applications? Spousal sponsorship applications are processing now. Um, inside, outside, I'm assuming you're probably outside. And we don't have enough data to know if they're actually moving forward with those applications. Immigration, I'll be honest, they have not been transparent even with us. And so, in terms of whether applications are moving forward with overseas spouses or not, that's something I can't confirm. And once again, we get back to the transparency, right? Yes, Yaroslavna. 100% communication means a lot. Absolutely, it does. Okay. All right. So now, wow. Okay, I'm going to keep zipping through here, and I'm going to give you guys time. So let's see how many we can get through here. Okay, Taha, how can a work permit application be refused in the eligibility review process, and how much time it takes for the review to be done? Well, often it's they don't believe that the work history that you have claimed fits, or in the context of a work permit, they don't believe that you have the experience necessary for doing it or the education that's necessary for applying for that work permit if this is an LMIA-based work permit. Those are often the factors. You yourself don't meet the requirements for the LMIA as it was posted and the job was posted in Canada. Often, Teha, that's what happens. Yep, same government, but plus 600 million expense. That's a response. Okay, Yusuf's exactly here. Okay, Gates says, can 2 international students who got married here in Canada be qualified for spousal open work permit if one of them drops out and apply to support the family? Thanks for your time. Yeah, you can. If the international student, when you get married, one can drop out and then become a spouse and go through the spousal work permit process, both for C41 and C42, which are for international student and for foreign workers. So yes, it is possible. Okay. Okay, what's happening with TRV? Like we talked about, Yedwinder, not a clue, my friend. Right now, I just don't have enough information. I'm not sure exactly where things are with that. 3 months enough time to apply for a study permit. You will remember that the government, I think it was in May, they said if you submit your applications within May, we will guarantee them to be approved in August before school starts. But after that, even in the last call I had with them, even that, there's no guarantees after that. So I would have to say that 3 months is probably pushing it, and it may not be enough. It really depends upon, once again, the visa office that you're ultimately getting your passport imprinted with the visa. Yedwinder, not a clue why they did that. It was just a gong show. Well, I can tell you why they did it, because they were trying to figure out a way, because all of these TRVs have been filed for so long. So no decision was made. They were just shelved. And so they're trying to figure out a way to just ignore that and let those previous applications go and then have a new one come in, because it was easier to just take a new one fresh and then process it versus pulling out old ones and assigning them to officers and figuring out what was going on. Clearly, it's a disaster. Okay. Jat, good luck, right? So 400,000, especially with the Afghan situation, I don't think they're going to hit that target. Yeah, that 401,000 that they anticipated hitting overall for a global, process. And remember, that number is inclusive of all types of immigration applications. For the economic class, it's over 100,000. But for all of them holistically, and when I mean economic, I mean those like Express Entry, CEC, even the PNPs have a different allotment. So, but that includes all of them. Okay, some data says the peer-to-peer was a massive failure, much like the China crash. Well, some data, it hasn't been a failure, and this is why it was a horribly designed process. But what we're seeing now, instead of crucifying people and punishing them for missing documents because of the rush and the race to file, they're giving people opportunities to correct their files. And this is why the federal skilled worker processing used to be up to 6 or 7 years, because people were given an opportunity to update files and to submit new information and to correct mistakes, and even to some extent documents that were missing to upload new ones. And so, yeah. George, good to see you. Okay. Well, some comments, if they're a little bit, uh, um, a little bit inflammatory, I'm probably not going to post them, and you know who you are. Okay. Not that I don't, um, yeah, I know where you're going with this. Well, I said I wasn't going to pass over anyone, so I'll put them up. I wish I could see who this was. This person's in the Express Entry Law private Facebook group. They seem probably means more focus on refugees. The more they print money and cripple the economy because of this deadly virus, the more they need people who will support them no matter what. Skilled workers might have different opinion and won't like the idea of turning their dream Canada into a communist hellhole. All right. Well, there's an opinion. Absolutely. And I'm sure there's other people that feel like you do as well. Okay, applied TR to PR essential non-health. Wife has a study permit. Okay, I think I already covered that one. Yeah, so we already covered that one. Okay, could you increase the audio feed? It is lower than usual. Oh, man. Look at how long I talked before it even connected. Oh, that's bad. Now I can see that the audio, oh, man. That like took me, this is where I need someone on the side who's helping. So 50 minutes I went with the audio being too low. All right. This is what you get with the one-man show doing a live stream. No bells, no whistles, just purely trying to help and answer questions. Oh my goodness. Oh, I'm so sorry, you guys. Clearly, I could have looked at my audio levels and seen that they were too low. Now I know they're probably good. Thank you for pointing that out, Vishvesh, if I'd only looked at it like 50 minutes ago. Okay, tuning in from Ontario. That's great. Singapore, Ranjot, good to see you. Yes, thank you, Amna. I definitely need to lose some weight and get some exercise. Yes, and I see this. So Spider-Man visitor visa applied January, got passport request just now, a record-making 9 months wait. Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible. I'm glad that at least you're moving forward. Are you coughing a lot, Margie? Okay. Guys, it's been a long day. A long day. Okay, here's a good question. If the applications don't get cleared out when the new knock comes into effect, will it impact those applications? Will they scrap them? No, they're not going to do that, you guys. Immigration, they're not going to do that as they're moving to a new system. Okay. Yeah, this breaks my heart, Raj. Since December 2018. Now, I'm not sure what stream or what process, if you've got an application that's been filed, I suspect that's probably the case. But my heart goes out to you. That's crazy. That's insane. Closing in on 3 years. I'm so sorry, my friend. Yeah. So here's a good question. Okay. TRV, international grad, 1:17 a.m. I think maybe that's PM. Anyways, what would be the expect for AOR? My friend, these AORs are extending and extending and extending. And I think there's lots of websites where they've been tracking this stuff and trying to figure out exactly where. That's not something that I spend a lot of time doing. There's other people that love the statistical side. But I can't answer that one for you, my friend. But the last part you did said you want to visit India this November. Well, remember, and you guys have seen what happened there, right? The travel restrictions and then an inability to travel back through no fault of your own because Canada just closed the doors to India. And then lots of people are impacted. And with the TR to PR pathway, if that's the application that you went through, you have to be in Canada for it to be finalized. And it could fall all apart if you're unable to get in. Yes. Okay. Okay. So we've got, Libin. This might be one of these, Libin, where I suggest you book a consult with me because there's a lot of specific stuff in here. Biometrics uploaded and partner past medicals. Didn't hear anything after my EEI expires tomorrow. Okay. Yeah. There's not much that I can do about that, my friend. I'm sorry. I feel for you. Yeah. That's a tough one. Okay. Okay. Thank you for sharing that, Janny. So Canada announces extension of flight ban from India. Thank you. And you can see that there's no control over this. They do, Yusuf. They need to hire more officers. They absolutely have to do that. It's the only way. And all of these, I'm going to post all these because it's true. FSWs right now, depending on the situation you're in, are not in a good spot, and you have a right to be angry. Jacob, organization, I don't know which kind of application you submitted. If it's an express entry, then just send them a little web form and update it. If it's TR to PR pathway, don't worry about it until they reach out to you. And then if you want to add it in, you can correct it. It's not going to be something that will cause your application to get refused, especially because organizations, the definition of them is so broad. You just don't know what really they're looking for in terms of an organization. So, all right, Jessica's over in Scarborough. Good to see you. Yes, this is the same thing, Janeth. This private sponsorship, 2019, got my sponsor approved February 2020, but until I didn't get an update about my application, what could be the reason? It's the pandemic, it's paper. And that's really what it comes down to. And the short staff in the overseas visa offices and the government choosing with their limited resources, which is officer numbers, to focus on certain streams over others. For example, the Afghan stuff is just like become one of the biggest priorities for the government at the expense of everybody else. And I think people just have to voice their concerns, because I don't think it's good for any one stream of applicants, no matter how important they are, to then cause others to suffer and suffer, because that's what happens. When you prioritize one, others fall by the wayside. AMNA, spousal sponsorship application, status changed in process to decision made. Don't know what that means. It means that you're going to get a request for a passport when they get around to it. That's what it means. Or I guess it's possible if a decision is made. Now, I don't know the whole situation, AMNA, but I guess a decision made also can mean refusal, but probably not in the circumstances. Okay. Okay, Perth says, applied TR to PR under Essential Stream on July 7th. Haven't received an AOR. Want to know, can I give prior biometrics with my old biometric letter from my last application's work permit or TR? That's a tough one. It depends on how you answered the questions in the TR to PR. And when it comes to biometrics, depending on how long ago you did them, often they can and will accept the old biometrics. But I'll let you in on a little secret. Because I don't want a request to come in for a biometric, they somehow haven't, drawn a conclusion. And maybe, I don't know if your old biometrics, if you've got a new passport or anything like that, that plays in. But I always, if it's the difference is a few dollars extra, sometimes I would go forward and I will just do it, because I don't want to be in a situation, especially the lack of ability to communicate with them, to then have them refuse the application or something crazy because you didn't complete the biometric when you actually did. So often I will do it and then I'll request a refund if that's the case. But at any rate, I don't take any chances. In Canada, Sajad Express entry is right around 6 months. However, everyone knows somebody that got their application probably processed in a month or less. So it's all over the map. Yep, you're right, Harshot. The Rural Northern and Immigration Pilot is really for companies, businesses in those communities who are already employing people working there. That's what we're seeing. People on a post-grad work permit are living there, working for a company, and then they're the ones that are often nominated for the RNIPs. That's the case in Claresholm, which is the only one in Alberta. Yeah, and this is a good question, Armand. So he says, is it really based on FIFO? It is from the standpoint of how the files are assigned. When it gets to an officer, Armand, and when they have these backlog of assigned files, some officers, because remember, they're not just refusing out of course, are faster than others. And so it's entirely possible that someone who filed their application after you is going to potentially get their acknowledgement of receipt before you. So I understand this. There's a whole host of factors, Armin, and I understand what you're saying, but it's designed to be FIFO from the standpoint of how the files are assigned to officers. And just to clarify, first in, first out is what FIFO is. Okay, good to see you, Harini. Okay, does RCC honor pregnancy due date, and is anything being processed for Jamaica? Okay, so Anisha, if you're pregnant and you haven't yet completed a medical, then obviously you're not going to be able to complete the chest x-ray until the child is born, and then you complete it. But other than that, they will delay. If you have a pregnancy and you notify them, then they will wait for the child to be born and then finalize your PR. But you need to keep them apprised, okay, when that child is born. Yeah, same thing, Jessica. I can't say on a visitor visa how long it's going to be. Yes. Faustina, this is one where I'd encourage you just to book a consult. You can just go over to our website, and I think you guys can probably find that. If I share here, just go over to our website. I don't even know if I have the consult link in the bottom. I'm not sure, but click on there, book a consult, and we can take a look and see if we can sort that out. The reality is, a work permit, it depends upon if your husband is inside or outside Canada. And all outside Canada work permits, even for spouses open work permits, they're all delayed for the same reasons that everything else is delayed in those overseas visa offices. Rajul, good to see you. Gedal, there is a chance, and I'm holding to that. I'm doing good, Rajul. Let's see here. Recommendations for December 2018 AOR under Express Entry. Only update was medical past. Yeah, it's all location, Raj. And I think we covered that one already. I don't think, Rashid, there's going to be a big CEC draw. Yep. Jerry, it's not just the London office. It's all over the place. And largely it's because officers have been reassigned to different priorities. And the Liberal government tells basically IRCC, it's the Prime Minister, it's Minister Mendicino, it's their priorities. There's a lot of politicization with respect to which PR applications are getting priority in the midst of this pandemic. So, I feel for you. So, Armin, many after the time frame have already received their AOR. Yep. Okay. Let's see here. New knock code. I think the new knock code is going to open the door for a breakdown of the skilled, like high skilled, low skill interpretation that Canada has used for valuing the worth of foreign workers in our country. I think it's going to shatter that. I think it's going to open up, and the minister saw this. I think Minister Mendicino realized how important in the whole TR to PR pathway with the essential workers, what happens when Canada doesn't have those workers. So whether or not there's a big fancy degree associated with your ability to work, that doesn't mean that individuals are not every bit as valuable as those with, say, a master's degree. And I think that's what they're starting to realize. Yusuf, understand that the French weren't in a big crazy rush like the international grads, right? All those applications piled in, 40,000, boom, in like one day. So those are all first before a lot of the French people applied because they weren't in such a big hurry to get it in. And really, even now, you can still file the TR to PR. So that's why. Mohammed says, which federal party policies you support? Mohammed, I'm going to refrain from identifying my political party until until after I am off the Canadian Bar Association's the table, because I deal with all parties, and there was a time I dealt with the Conservatives, and I kept my mouth closed about my political persuasion. There's a time when I dealt with the Liberals, which has been the last number of years, and I must remain aloof from all of those denominations in the public realm. And so I'll hold off, but that's a good question, and one I'll maybe address in a couple of years. But at this stage, my only priority is building relationships and working collaboratively with the current government in power and Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, ESDC, Minister Blair, Public Safety, all of that. So that's my priority. Okay, George says, is it all possible not to qualify for citizenship if someone lives in Quebec after getting CEC inland, another province? I'm asking because I understand that citizenship is a privilege and not a right. Yeah, they don't look at that. Now, remember, you have to show an intention to reside outside of the province of Quebec at the time in which your permanent resident visa is issued. I personally have mentioned this many times with the provincial nominee programs that I don't want people. My recommendation, well, I always tell people, if you have no intention of living in that province, don't waste that spot for someone that could have taken it, who actually wants to live there and make the province better. But once you land and you become a permanent resident, as long as there was no misrepresentation, if you then move to Quebec, months later, because there's a job opportunity you don't want to pass up, it doesn't affect your citizenship. Okay. That's a good question, Marina. Would you recommend doing upfront re-medicals for those of us outlanders who know that their medicals will expire while we wait for application to be finalized? So here's the key, Marina. We don't know how fast they're going to do it. Now, I can't personally envision any world where you guys are going to have to wait a whole nother year and then the second medical expires. But if you're in a country, and someone asked about the coughing, remember, I've been talking to people all day today since really it was 7 a.m. in the morning. So we're going 12 hours straight. I do all my consultations via this format. And so that's why my throats get a little dry. All right. Okay. So upfront medicals. So the questions I ask myself, Marina, are how fast can I get a medical? So if I get a notification from immigration, can I book one next week? Or does it take months and months to get the medical? And really, that's what I make my decision on. How far along in the process am I? And if I know my medical is expiring, does it look like, and I know no one can predict, there's no crystal ball, but does it look like in the near future, it's likely I'm going to get something from them because I'm hearing other people? Then in that case, if the officer is willing to do another upfront medical for you, there's nothing stopping you from doing it. Sometimes those officers will say, well, wait, no. I need the 1017 form. I need the official request from immigration for you to do that. So it just depends on country by country. Good question. Okay. Okay. And lots of people are asking about what's the processing times? When can I expect my application to process? I'm going to zip through those ones because, guys, I really don't have an answer for you. And this is my problem that I have with IRCC right now. You know, that it's simply inexcusable to cut off communication. People deserve a right to know where they're at. And this policy of we're just not going to talk to you is just simply not acceptable. Yeah. And I think, you know, I don't think the election really had too much to do with it. The officers are still processing. All the civil servants are the ones that are processing. It's the MPs, the members of parliament, the ministers that are out campaigning and doing all of that. But the officers themselves are still moving forward, doing their job, doing what they're paid to do. They're all civil servants and they're not involved in the election process. They are, you know, they're not affiliated with any party, right? They're Government of Canada employees. Okay, this one about medical, I'm going to ring that bell. Because there's a lot of things that play with medical inadmissibility, and I recommend that you book a consult and then we can chat about that. As a rule of thumb, in which case is it advisable to decline an ITA? That's a massive one. I never, ever want to decline unless there's a very, very good reason for doing it. In other words, I know that by declining it, I have a virtually almost guaranteed that I'm going to get another ITA, that my CRS is that high. Another reason when it's to decline is when you've lied or misrepresented something in your profile and you've now got an ITA and now you're faced with the reality that, oh, I just claimed something that I'm not entitled to. So that's another clear time when you're going to decline the ITA because it would perpetuate a fraud. Now, there's obviously ways that you can correct it and say, oh, there was a mistake in that application. And that's why I ring that bell, because you really should just slide over and book a consult so we can go through this. But I never want to relinquish something that I've been given unless I know for certain there's a good reason to do it or that I know I'm going to get another one for sure. And here's a question. Will the FSW applications, which are in process, be rejected by RCC? No, they're not going to do that. Manoj, I'm doing good. Good to see you, Isaac, over in Ghana, West Africa. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, do you think that temporary foreign worker applicants will have to reapply again, especially if you had an LMIA and job offer that may expire? Thanks. No. Remember, Brian, if your job offer and your LMIA is going to expire, well, as long as you got that application, that work permit application submitted before the 6 month or whatever the expiry date was, no, it would be cruel for them to return it or somehow tell you to reapply, because in many cases, because of their own delays, the LMIAs may have expired and you won't have the ability to resubmit it. So please, yeah, I don't think, Brian, boy, this is one of these, ring the bell. If they somehow tell you to reapply in those circumstances, that would just be cruel, and I would challenge them on that. Great question, HP. I have 2 lawyers that I refer all my medical and admissibility files to in Ontario, and they do an awesome job. They're really good at it. And so if you need anything, just let me know, and I'm happy to refer those lawyers to you. Okay. Let's see here. Thanks, Wanu. Oh, I need some positive feedback. Boy, did I take a beating last week. And it was fair. It was completely fair. Which federal policies you like? Yeah, we answered that one. George says, hey, Mark, a message from me. No, what you said was fine. I'm a foreigner and do not feel bad about what you said. Any immigration status or citizenship is a privilege and not a right, just like driving. Yes, that's true, George. I guess the thing is, the biggest thing for me is, yes, there's no legal, binding anything. Obviously there's some things if there's, representations made, but the biggest issue, George, is, as I was thinking about this, is just the lack of communication and the disrespect. And I think people can put up a lot with a lot of things if they're communicated with, if immigration is transparent and they're respected. And we're just seeing a lot of disrespect right now. Does one have to be working at the time receiving the ITA, says Andrea. It depends on the category, right? So understand, if you're going through CEC or FSW and you meet the eligibility and you're not currently working, that's okay. It's not a requirement. If at the time in which the ITA was issued, you have that minimum eligibility met in the time frame right before you got the ITA. That's an open one there, Abdul. I'm not sure what you're asking, Snary, about co-op work permits, other than, you apply for them in conjunction with whatever educational program that requires you to work while you're studying, but not just 20 hours full time. So that tends to be the difference. And so those of you who are asking questions about, those of you who are asking questions about the processing times and everything, those are ones I'm just going to pass through because I've described it over and over, the situation. I don't know what this is. Enough said. Canadian Institute. I'm not sure what that is. I don't know if that's good or bad, but hey, all comments are welcome today. I deserve it. TR to PR fast. No, it won't, Sahib. I think we answered that one already. And we answered about rejecting. Nope. Is this live or pre-recorded? Okay, Omni, there you go. Simone is not in live chat. Seriously. Do you seriously think that this is not alive? All right, there you go. I love this. That's awesome. All of my videos, and this is the thing, the other folks out there that are producing videos, I'm doing this live, off the cuff. There's no scripted, and you can see that's why the actual video here isn't fancy. I can pull a few things up, right? I can pull, this is the topic we were talking about. It's now morphed into talking about everything, regardless of post-election. I can do a few things. I can bring up a nice picture of a bunny and talk about the rabbit effect and how, to a large extent, if immigration treated you guys with dignity and respect, there wouldn't be such vitriol and such anger and such animosity, and people could actually plan their lives. It's the unknown. It's the uncertainty. It's being left without an ability to actually figure out where you're at. That's the problem. And if they just applied the rabbit effect and treated people with respect and kindness, and okay, maybe love is pushing it, but you can still be kind and genuine and sincere and care about people. Anyways, all right. Super. Okay, we got a super there. I don't know. We're so far back that I don't know what comments those were related to. Manoj, don't submit the police report in the medical until you get your AOR and they request it. Okay, let's see here. Well, you can't deny the government of Canada prefers Europeans to immigrate. Well, Sean, that's a tough one, because I think when it comes to the borders and the lockdowns and the extension of the travel ban, that's less attributed. Well, you know what? Good point. Maybe the rates, I don't know what the rates are in Europe, but maybe there is a prejudice there to some extent. But when it comes to immigration, aside from the travel restrictions and how they're treating, citizens of India and countries where they're just not opening it up yet. If you look at the total number of applicants, there is a large proportion of the immigrants to Canada are not Europeans. So, but Sean, who knows? Like, in your comment could refer to other things, and yeah. Oh, lack of communication as you don't have it. Okay, I don't. I'm not sure if that's a nice comment or speed of light, and it's usually people. I'd love to see your real name, anyways, but maybe it's saying I'm a horrible person, which is totally possible, and you're probably right, Speed. Okay, yes, FSW draws, we covered on that. Okay, nice comments, Mark. You're welcome. Traveling harsh, I recommend against it while you have a TR2PR application in the queue, for the simple reason that, what if the travel, they ban travel from your country? This one, GC Key, it's a freaking gong show. It's because, think of it like a computer, a hard drive that's at 99%. Think of it like your phone, for instance. Let's say your phone here is at 90% or 99% capacity, and you guys know how it locks and it just shuts down because there's no there's no data, there's no room to even function with the various software programs and the operating system. That's what GC Key is. That's basically what the whole My CIC portal is, and the GC Key system. That's why you're like clearing cache. You're operating in incognito. You're switching web browsers. You're turning your computer off and starting it again. Like it's horrible. I understand that. Okay, my bridging open work permit is expiring in December. Will I have to apply for extension, or do they provide automatic extension? They do not. That's a one-time shot, except for the policy that they instituted for those who were really harmed last year during the pandemic, that 18-month policy to grant a new work permit under the bridge, under the post-grad. Those ones, there was an ability under the post-grad work permit program, but for bridging open work permits, actually, do you know what? You have to apply is the short answer. Okay. So yes, if you have an AOR, your current bridging open work permit's expiring, you can apply to extend it if there hasn't been a decision on your permanent resident application, but it's not automatic. No, sirree, you have to apply. Sashin, right now, I don't think so. Until they start to do more frequent and larger numbers of draws, I think the CEC scores are actually going to stay, pretty comparable, or maybe go up a little bit. But remember, the last draw, it was like almost a month before it happened, and there was only 2,000 candidates. So that's why. Yeah, Era, I really am not sure if there's going to be a chance to open another. I really don't think so. At least not this year. I can't see it. There's too many applications in the queue, too much of a backlog to process the existing applications. And so I can't see them opening up another TR2PR this year. But in their mandate, they talk about transitions for foreign workers, international students. So maybe next year, but I haven't heard anything about them just rolling out a whole new round of TR2PRs. Okay, Manjinder, good to see you. Okay, Jacob says, I want to know if one job can be under 2 different NOC codes, and if no, will that be misrepresentation if I use different NOC codes to apply for 2 different PR streams? Yes, I think, well, I don't know if it would be considered misrepresentation, but you're telling them the NOC code that you think, but no position can really cross equally. It'd be really tough. Maybe there's some exception I'm not thinking of, but generally there's always one NOC code that is the strongest and the one that you go through. Now, I've had lots of people come back to me after they submitted their application, and we look and say, oh, that was the wrong NOC code. And then we update immigration and try to inform them and say, look, we actually went through this and looked at it carefully, and we actually think this NOC code is better, and then try to correct it or fix it. But yeah, in that situation, Jacob, I'm not going to do that. If you're trying to work through one program by saying, I'll give you an example, right? Food service supervisor or food service or food counter attendant, and then saying, well, I'm actually a cashier. So on one application, it's that, and then the other one, it's a cashier. And lots of people tried that in the TR2PR pathway. some, it may work. Maybe it worked for them, but there was a specific intention not to include food service within the TR to PR pathway. That's why it wasn't on the list. Okay. Let's see what else here. I'm zipping through these. I know there's a ton of questions, and I'm really trying to answer as many as I can here. Okay, when doing a paper application for postgrad extension, passport expired sooner than postgrad will length. Do you get implied status when they receive the letter or when they send you AOR? So Carrie, I'm not quite sure if I have an answer to this. So passport expired sooner than the postgrad work permit full length. And in that case, when you get your new passport, you can go back and you can request an extension to reclaim the balance of that time before your current postgrad work permit expires. So if they only gave you 2 because your passport was expiring, you can reapply to reclaim the balance of that year if it was a 3. Hopefully that kind of helped you. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. So Sasha, yep, that the delays are a reality here. And lots of people are asking about processing. And so I'm just going to zip through these ones because I've already answered that a lot. Yeah, this is a tough one, Zenith. I'm going to hit that. You really need to book a consult so we can talk about it, my friend, because intention to reside outside the province of Quebec is definitely a reality when it comes to express entry. And it's a significant concern if you're not actually living outside of the province of Quebec. The ability to demonstrate that intention, they treat it pretty strictly. And so you have to have really, really good evidence to justify it. Yeah, this is a tough one, Dara. I have a client who's in China right now who's languishing, the same as all of you guys, an overseas client. And yeah, I see since February, the cases are low, visa office and the cases there are low too. When do you think I would get PPR? I'm in China. Yeah, Dara, that is really tough. I've got a client who's in that same situation, filed. When did she file? Was it 2019? Guess it was 2020. Just in the midst of the pandemic. And yeah, everything is kind of stalled out. Yep. So Harsh, I already discussed that they want to expand those things, both foreign workers and for international students. That's right in their mandate. Okay. So for foreign experience, should we specify the not code in the reference letter? You don't have to, Shama. You don't, because you're specifying it in your actual profile, the express entry profile. I am not great at pronouncing names. You should see, I really do a hard, like trying to read fast. And I know most of the time I'll let you in on a little secret here. So if I take up Yadwinder here asking about TRV, which I've already answered, sometimes if I don't know how to pronounce Yadwinder, I'll just call them Barry. Whichever I think I can pronounce. That's how I do that. That's awesome. Okay. Let's see. We've got a lot of duplication here, so that's why I'm a little bit delayed in between here. And let's see here. Okay, so Tony, he posts, and that's fine. He says, Canada first. My son and daughter need a job soon. Yeah, I understand. They're probably stuck, right, Tony? Seriously, Omni? I think Omni's on drugs here. I love the all caps though. That's pretty awesome. It's clearly not recorded. The reason is I go and take time to answer the questions, and what they don't appreciate, Omni here, is that there are people on Facebook that you guys don't see comments. And that's probably why if you don't see them in the stream and I'm answering someone's comment, you can see when I pull it up, but there's Facebook as well as YouTube here. Oh yeah, this is one, Terry Ann, my goodness. I have one for some spousal clients right now, and it doesn't matter how I enter the information in, I literally cannot link it to my account. And so this is a known issue that they're trying to work through, but it is so frustrating, especially when you then are trying to call the call center to figure out what's going on to try to help you connect. And they say, sorry, we can't talk to you unless you meet these narrow requirements, which have nothing to do with your application. So yeah, I fear for you, Terry. And us immigration lawyers and consultants, we are facing the same things. It's just a disaster. Ramesh says, in which visa category would be most effective with this election outcome? Well, I think any economic immigrant is, you know, if you're inside Canada, and obviously you're in a far better situation than if you're outside. But in terms of a visa category, I think with the one thing we learned from the election is that the previously announced things that the Liberals were doing, the expectation is that they're going to do it, but they haven't really, I'll be honest, they haven't been chastised with the way they've been treating the outside of Canada. And so the election happened. They were reelected under the same conditions. Canadians were not willing to give them a full mandate with a majority to allow them just do, proceed with whatever they wanted to do within their platform. But with all the problems that you guys have been facing, clearly, none of the parties felt it was of a big enough issue to make it an election issue, because immigration just was not discussed. And so, yeah, so I don't know if there's any one particular visa that I would recommend. Ultimately, it's eligibility. And here's another thing. If you are eligible for multiple processes, pursue them all. And then whichever wins, great. Then you can withdraw the others. Yes, you might be processing fees associated with it, but because there's so much volatility in immigration, excuse me, there's no guarantees with anything. So I increase my odds. Okay. I'm really trying to get to these as much as possible. Okay. Background checks are all over the place, Hitesh. It depends on your country. Depends on if you're in Canada. There's a wide variety of things that apply. And so there isn't any one set time frame for how long it takes. You're very welcome. Wow, that's how long it takes. Okay. Lima processing times. I love Lima. That is awesome. It's LMIA, Labor Market Impact Assessment. I love how people call it Lima. Someone got on that knack, and the reality is it's a labor market impact assessment, not labor impact market assessment. But anyways, the answer is, like I said, the SDC, the portal that the officers use to issue LMIAs is all over the map. And so there are some days when the officers themselves can't even process the LMIAs, but you can access the processing times, and often they are months and months, my friend. So it depends on the stream that you're applying under. But lately we've seen it's, if it's in an area where throughout the pandemic of essential work, we were seeing them come back fairly quickly from within Canada. But applications outside that are not deemed to be essential, at least in the old essential world, were taking a long time. And then ultimately right now, processing times can be up to 3 months after the advertisements and everything are completed and the application is submitted. Pranita, that's a good question. If you actually weren't admitted to the US, but whenever I have any doubt, I just disclose it in an LOE. Let's see. You're welcome, Mo. Hitesh, they don't usually complete it in 1 to 2 weeks. It depends on whether or not the officers on the other end are relying on officials from a different country to get back to them. And so it's really all over the map. But why they don't update the status on GC Key, that is a mystery, and it happens. It's different for everyone. Some people, it gets done quickly, right? Like we've seen people who've reported that they in Canada CEC have gone start to finish all the way through in a month or even less sometimes. So clearly that whole process, sometimes they could do it in a day. The background check, if there isn't much they have to do. For example, like the US, they just look in because they've got information sharing with the US, UK, New Zealand, Australia. Those are a lot faster. Let's see what else we have here. And I'll just answer this one. Not a clue yet, Winder. The reason is they're trying to find ways to get through all the huge backlog of TRVs. And they think that if people reapply, I guess they thought maybe they could then, process it quicker than if they resurrected it from something else. If someone got a TRV visa refusal, is it possible to get an LMIA? Remember, Ramesh, LMIAs are employer applications, so they have nothing to do with you. It's the work permit that's the issue after the LMIA is issued and you go to apply for your work permit. The same reasons that they used for refusing the TRV, lack of ties to your home country, could also apply for work permits. And then here's a question from the Express Entry, the Canadian Immigration Institute Facebook page. So Val, good to see you. What about FSW? Sorry if you've responded already. I've just arrived. Val, unfortunately, we haven't heard any word on what they're doing with FSW. We're keeping our fingers crossed. Now, remember, Val, that FSW has, like, it's just a train wreck on all aspects. No new ITAs. People with applications pending are still stuck. Those with issued COPRs are seeing them expire. Although people are able to travel now, the travel restrictions don't prevent people with valid COPRs from traveling. But then there's those that have expired ones that are waiting for them to revive. So it's just a disaster, a mess. Let's see what else. Yadwinder, remember the GC Key, My CIC, that process is the new PR portal, and the new portal that immigration has. All of those, as long as you have an option to go through the old one, I'll be honest, Yadwinder, I pursue that on every level. The new one is glitchy as all get out, just like all of them. So I'm taking the position, if I have a choice, I'm going to stick with the old until the new is fully beta tested. Okay. Okay, here's a question. Made a mistake, Sedanth. Not sure about the NOC code. Can I apply under CEC while still keeping my file? Yes, you can. Absolutely you can. There's nothing stopping you from having multiple applications in the queue. Okay, let's see here. Mark, how do you do consultations regarding furtherance letter from IME? You just book a consult and we take a look at it. Simple as that, my friend. Okay. Yeah, I know everything is just ground, Charmian. I can't specifically say what is going on with the case processing center. I know that things, it just seems like it's just not moving, and I don't have a response for that one. Our newer, hey, that's great. I got my PR through Mark's course. TR forever thankful. Big shout out for you. Thanks, Hernur. That really motivates me to do this. So I appreciate that. Okay. And let's see what else we can get to. I'm really trying to get to as many as I can. I'm starting to kind of tucker out here a little bit because it's been about an hour and a half. But let's see what else we have here. Yeah. And Dilpreet, she's waiting. Another one that's on the Canadian Immigration Institute Facebook page. I hear your pain. The reality is immigration, they won't even talk to us when we reach out, because they're basically saying we're too busy with the Afghan crisis. And so we have to allocate all of our calls to those issues. And yeah, CEC, they say 80% will be processed in 6 months. Well, that's the standing, when you get your AOR, that's what it says, right? And so, yeah, waiting for more than 6 months for the decision, that is not uncommon. So there is no rhyme or reason. Well, there is a rhyme or reason. There's a lot of things that affect it. Overseas dependence to having, like I said, security checks and background checks. Some officers are faster than others. All those things play a role. Yes. Spousal open work permits, same situation, Khaled. Processing times are really, they vary by country. And the delays, I know, are just, they're unconscionable in some cases and for many of you. So depending on the country, where you're coming from, that's largely the factor, one of the big factors with the delays with those. Because if you're going through the spousal open work permit process, a visa has to be imprinted, and that's the problem. Man, I wish they did away with those visas. You're welcome, Vinny. Thanks for that. I really appreciate that positive comment. And Manoj with the TR to PR pathway, because now I know that they're really going out of their way to try to save everyone's applications. There's no harm in submitting it, but it's probably not going to go anywhere. Depends on what you need to, what's missing from the original one. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, Stephen, cutoff point. You look at the last one, it was pretty high, right? 460s. And if they don't do another one like quickly, it's possible that it's going to stay up that high. Let's see what else we have here. Yeah. So the PR card, it's another thing, anything that they're mailing out, and 6 months is just an exorbitant amount of time. Let's just flip over here quick and let's just see. So those of you who are wondering about processing times, obviously you can go here and you can type it in, IRCC processing times, and click on here. So if we look at the first time PR cards, let's take a look at that one. So we go here to PR permanent resident cards. Did you submit? Yes, I'm renewing. No, I'm waiting for my first card, which is the case here. So you can see 133 days. So 30, 60, 90, 125. Well, it says that's, this was last updated September the 21st, and 133 days is what they are looking at right here. And when I look at yours, you say it's been there for 6 months. I'm assuming that for some reason or another, it either there was a problem on their end, or they, that's a good question, Vinny. You have every right to follow up and to figure out what's going on with your application. The question is whether the officers, the call center officers, will take that. But I would just submit web form after web form. That's what I would do. You have a right, and you should be entitled to know when your PR card is being issued. And this is the problem I had right from the beginning. That's why I bring up this. That's why I address this, the rabbit effect. It's just common decency and communicating, and there's no excuse not to be able to do that. Is the inland spousal visa taking longer, like over in a year? It does in some cases. Absolutely, it does. Should we expect more FSW draws this year, considering RC is already closing on the 108,000 mark? Thanks. Remember, Sunil, that they're behind from last year. So 2020 was low. So the 108,000 mark is the mark for this year. And so they didn't meet their targets from last year. So they've got lots of room to keep issuing. So it's entirely possible. Okay. And remember that it's the actual landing. So even if they started to do it now in September, the people that are getting invitations to apply, if they did an outland draw, are not going to be coming into Canada until next year at the very earliest, given the disaster with everything else. So that's not a factor this year, because there's always, that delay of up to 6 months or longer. Okay. Yeah. Canardo, I don't think, do you think TR to PR will be affected in any way? No. Okay. This one's an express entry proof of funds thing. So, okay. Proof of funds was 1993 during my AOR, but now proof of funds is up to 21. How much funds should I maintain, 19 or 21? I would upgrade it to 21. Okay. Let's see here. Timeline. It's not something that they advertise or post or anything. It's so case specific. So I can't give you a timeline on that one. Okay, let's see here. Okay, let's see here. I think I'm probably going to tell you to book a consult, Sharma. I'm on a postgrad and have to study an online self-study course in order to get certain designation in my field. It is a requirement by the employer. Can I enroll in it and appear for the exam? I'm going to tell you to book this because I need to look into it in more detail. We saw a very interesting response to an email that was sent to the immigration representative's email address, where we can ask questions to immigration, where it suggests that some professional courses would require a study permit. So I can't speak to yours. I need more details, but I recommend that you book a consult. Okay, Tara says, police certificate in police clearance in the work permit application is expired yesterday. Should apply for a new one in case they ask for an updated one. It's unlikely that they would. It just depends, Taha, but it also depends on how long it's going to take you to get that new one. There's no harm in doing it and uploading it through a web form, but but it really just depends on how long it's going to take to get that new one. Okay. Okay, Isaac says, I graduated in April, started working in May. Do I need to wait until 1 year experience to create an express entry profile for CEC? If you do not have Canadian work experience, skilled Canadian work experience of 1 year, then you're not going to be able to create your profile under CEC. Some people have foreign work experience that allows them to get their profile created sooner. They may not get an ITA, but they benefit from that tiebreaker rule. Okay. There's a lot of things, Yusuf, that they can do. You bet. They could hire French speaking. They could hire more officers generally. So there's lots of things that they could do, my friend, for sure. Everything is just up to the government and what their priorities are. Okay, I think I'm going to go for just a couple more, and then I'm going to have to wrap this up. Let's see here. I've been working really hard to catch up, but I think I'm probably not going to be able to do this. Yeah, Winters says take a rest. Yeah, I probably should. Okay, let's see what else I can get here. Wow. Any of you, I'm going to ring the bell. Any of you guys understand that if you have complex situations that you need to get resolved, just go over to our website and book a consult. And I've showed you this before, but right here, you can book a consult with myself or one of the lawyers that are in our firm. And I can tell you that, we charge I charge $300 plus tax for a 25-minute consult. But understand, you can see how quickly I get through things. I don't waste time listening to you tell your story. You send it to me and our lawyers. We go through it and we give you answers and tangible advice that you can then take and go forward with, knowing that you've got the proper advice. So, yeah. So if I'm not able to get you guys, I'm really, really sorry. Aziz, hello, my friend. Good to see you, Aziz. I think I responded. Did I not respond to your Skype message there, Aziz? Understand, processing times are all over the map, my friend. And so there's no guarantee, and it's definitely not as fast as it used to be. Okay. Mistaken the 5669, Mustafa. I think that's TR to PR pathway. When you get the ability to send anything to them, then just update it. Okay. Boy, there's way more here than I thought I was going to have. Right now, Elias, yeah, GCMS, the ATIP requests are really the only way to get reliable information. Immigration just isn't going to talk to you. So thanks to you and good night to you as well. Yeah, Hans, thanks for the shout out about the live stream. And, 476 is a good score. But what we have is, because of this lengthy backlog, we've got a lot of people with PhDs with French speaking that it's going to take a couple draws to flush them out, I think, to pull it down to 476. So it'll be a little while, Hans, but hang in there. And with any luck, they're going to start doing those. Let's see here. I'm trying to figure out where I left off, but you know what, guys? I think I may have to shut her down here. Yeah, there's just too many for me to catch up to. So my sincerest apologies. We'll finish off here. Gabriella says, I had a personalized consultation and Mark gave me a clear vision of what I needed to do. Thank you very much. Thanks, Gabriella. She just jumped on here to post the comment. Thank you. That means a lot. All right. Oh boy. Yeah. Heart goes out to you guys. I understand all of these things. I'm going to have to shut her down now, but I just want to let you guys know once again that I'm sorry about the last video. Those that are watching it, probably the ones that are really upset probably are just, they're just going to put thumbs down on every video that I do, which I already saw. There was thumbs down happening, and that's totally fine. People are entitled to do that. So, but yeah, my heart goes out to all of you guys out there whose lives are just stalled out. And like I said before, this little study that they did, and an author called it the rabbit effect. All they have to do is just treat people with respect and kindness. And we know that there are limitations, that it's just, you can't just wave a magic wand and fix things. But I think people are entitled to being communicated to. I think they're entitled to being given an update on where the status is so that they can plan their lives, including making a decision to say, Canada isn't worth it for me. But as long as they're held in limbo, they're not told, there's just silence, no communication. In a world of technology right now, there's no excuse for that. And so that's where I'm going to call out immigration. And if they treated people well, they treated them with respect and kindness, then just like this study that showed that I talked about at the beginning, people are probably wondering what this rabbit effect is. Basically, they did a study and they were testing, the effect on heart health of a high fat diet. And they basically fed all the rabbits this super high fat diet in these control groups. But there was this one group that, even though they were fed everything the same, they were in the same place, same kind of rabbits. The the buildup in their arteries was up to 60% less than the other groups. And why? Because of one researcher who was just a kind person who would pet the rabbits and just treat them kind and speak softly to them and basically love them. And the rabbits, because of that, had a drastically different response. And I know that you guys, and I don't in any way mean to compare you to rabbits, it's the principle, right? Of just, if they just treated you with more respect, were more open, more transparent, then you would have an ability to actually know how to govern yourself. And I think this vitriol and this anger and this just, and obviously people are targeting it to me because of the video, and I don't blame them. They're fully entitled to do that. But if immigration could just spend some time communicating with people, things would be a whole lot more manageable. And it's just the decent, fair thing to do. All right. It's time for me to hit the hay. I'm exhausted. Hopefully this was helpful to some people. And I really wanted to do the Q&A just to help people and answer the questions. And hopefully this was helpful. I'm sorry if I wasn't able to get to your question. Like I said, I'll be back on Wednesday. Tomorrow morning, I guess. Oh my goodness. I'll be back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. for Canadian Immigration Live Q&A. All right, guys, take care. And we will see you guys again soon.